Chair lays out House Bill 5489. Recognize Representative Dyson to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Vice Chairs, members. First and foremost, I really want to thank you all for taking the time to hear this today. I know time is precious this time of the session, and I think this has the, pun intended, a potential to be a impactful bill. The idea behind this bill was introduced to me by my constituent and College Station City Councilman Bob Yancy, as we were having a conversation about housing affordability during the campaign trail. We talked about what could the state do to help address these issues. We talked about what the city was doing to help address these issues, and kind of the genesis ended up being my focus on impact fees, which is the focus of 5489, and it's a 4-year temporary moratorium on imposition of impact fees. As you're aware, Texas has experienced exponential growth, and it's become increasingly common. Some governmental entities have been using impact fees. Impact fees were, I think, introduced or allowed by this legislature back in 1989, and some cities slowly have been adopting those. It's becoming a little bit more popular. At the end of the day, I think a lot of people debate whether we call it a fee or whether we call it upfront tax. I think a lot of people understand that it really ends up being an upfront tax, although it's labeled as an impact fee. I think impact fees, they seem like a useful tool to mitigate the impacts of growth. They often lead to increased housing costs, but they're really regressive. And a lot of times when you look at it, it's based on the meter size. Sometimes it could be a house of $300,000 versus a house of $1 million, and they pay the exact same impact fee going into it. I'll kind of yield. I know we have a lot of witnesses that will come here today testifying on and then also for and against the bill. So I'll let them get there and be happy to reserve my right to close and answer any questions that y'all might have. Again, I appreciate y'all giving me the ability to lay this out today and talk to y'all about this bill.
Members, any questions for Representative Dyson? No further questions will proceed to public testimony. The first 3 witnesses going to call is John Nichols, Bryan Woods, and Melissa McIlhaney. Thank you for being here today. Is John Nichols here? Yes, sir. We show you registered as John Nichols on behalf of yourself and the city of College Station, and you'll be testifying against the bill. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
My name is John Nichols. I am the mayor of City College Station. I wanted to first say that I think the goal of this bill is laudable. I think affordable housing is something that we're all concerned and interested in. However, I don't think this is the most efficient way to accomplish that. The House and Senate have had a number of bills that address this. The City of College Station has addressed it through our ongoing Affordable Housing Action Plan. That was citizen engagement. We came up with some ideas. We're in the process of reviewing those. We have an ongoing committee that will consider how to best encourage affordability. Our interest is to make sure the affordability goes with the property, goes with the land, and we don't think that simply a moratorium on impact fees really will address that, because after the first sale, that benefit, if there is any, goes away. College Station, since 2010, has a lot of rich dialogue among the councils over the years. We adopted impact fees in 2015. Councils over those years since then have addressed this, reviewed it, and analyzed it, and we believe, and the majority of the councils over the years have believed that this is the best way to address a public finance question as to who pays for new growth. And we've adopted a mixed system using a moderate rate of impact fees to help address this. And we think that it's only fair in a city that's very unique. 65% of our residential units are rentals in the city of College Station, way different than most places. And you know, we are the city of home of Texas A&M. Somebody's going to have to pay for this. Our belief is a shared responsibility. If this bill passes, that means water and wastewater rates will increase in College Station. So I just ask you to consider the fact that local government, local representatives have had their opportunity to address this in an honest and fair way, and I think that's the best place for these kind of decisions. Thank you, sir.
Members, any questions? Go ahead, Representative Morgan.
What do you use the impact fees for?
The impact fees are tied, as I think those that have really studied impact fees, and it's a complex area, they're real infrastructure costs for system enhancements that are linked to expected new growth in the community. For example, a $40 million wastewater treatment plant expansion is covered in the capital plan that has to be filed before you can impose impact fees. We're facing about an $80 million investment in new water wells that are tied to the need for more water as new growth comes in. So we are collecting a moderate amount. Most of this is still covered by ratepayers in water and wastewater. Most of this is covered by ratepayers, but impact fees help to moderate that impact of growth. Is it fair to include the 65% of homes and households that are rentals that will probably, and because we're a transient community with a large student population, are ever likely to be buying a house in this new area? Is it fair to charge them higher water or wastewater rates in order to pay off the infrastructure for new growth? It's tied to a specific capital plan that has to be laid out as part of the impact fee adoption.
Okay, thank you.
Members, any other further questions? Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you, sir.
Next witness is Bryan Woods. We show you registered as Bryan Woods on behalf of the city of College Station. You'll be testifying against the bill, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman and Committee. I think the mayor actually said it really well, so I'll reduce my speech here. I just want to echo that I think everyone is interested in affordability and sustainable growth, including Representative Dyson. We've had some great conversations about this bill, but I want to reiterate what the mayor said. When you think about affordability, you have to think about affordability across all fronts. And if these impact fees are reduced or the government's ability to impose impact fees, those costs will still have to be paid. This goes to hard infrastructure. It's very specific. We have to account for it in a very specific way. If you don't pay for it in one place, you pay for it in another. I'm not here to argue which way that is. That's for politicians to do. I'm just here to tell you that it is a fact of financial life. If you want to pay for growth, you must have the money to pay for infrastructure. And I believe, and our council believes, that local community governance is the best way to decide that. Every community is different. College Station is certainly unique on its own, but I guarantee you could get every city manager and every mayor from the cities all across the state to tell you why they have a unique situation. The state laid out impact fees years ago as a tool to help growth. I think they help to encourage growth because you want people to want that growth, and this is one way to offset a very small piece of that. I'll just close again and say that I certainly understand we've had rigorous debate in our city about impact fees and many other things. We have a council who does not all agree on how to use impact fees, does not all agree on how to do taxes and infrastructure, but they come together mutually for the benefit of the community. And I think College Station is one of the most successful cities in the state of Texas from a quality of life, tax rate, and sustained growth. And they're a great example of how this can work. So I'm happy to take any questions if anyone has them.
Members, any questions for the witness? Okay, thank you for your testimony. The chair, Melissa McIlhaney. We show you registered as Melissa McIlhaney? McIlhaney. And you'll be testifying on behalf of yourself and the city of College Station. You'll be testifying against the bill, is that correct?
Yes, I represent the citizens of College Station as an elected council member. And I really appreciate you guys hearing me today and the rest of our representatives. College Station is very unique. We reside in the heart of the Texas Triangle. We are in the middle of nowhere, just a few hours from everywhere. People are flocking there in groves. Our population has doubled since 2000. Another interesting fact about me, my husband and I make our living building houses. So I have written checks for and paid impact fees on behalf of the projects that we are doing. My views on impact fees are not necessarily the same as anyone else's on council, but I do firmly believe that this is a matter left best for local governance to manage. We have a number of different ways, as the city manager pointed out, that we can fund things. As it stands right now, a portion of that is taken up by impact fees or offset by impact fees. I personally am very interested in exploring ways to waive certain ones and relieve certain ones, but I do feel like the city is taking steps to move in that direction. We have a housing affordability plan that was adopted into our comprehensive plan, and we expect specific recommendations come from that. As you know, government doesn't always move quickly, but the steps have been taken. We've got over 1,700 residential units allocated to higher density residential or higher density housing, which will in fact require us to upgrade infrastructure in those areas. So we have a lot of growth. It's unprecedented, and we are unique, but so is every other Texas city. I would just ask that you please allow this to be a matter best set aside for those closest to the action and local government to take care of. Thank you.
Representative Morgan, go ahead.
Yeah. So when did impact fees become kind of a prominent thing? And then obviously the rates have increased significantly over time. Can you help me understand that a little bit?
I believe we adopted impact fees in 2016, 2015, 2016. And at the onset, it was the subject of rigorous debate. And the rate has been, is established in conjunction with the Impact Fee Advisory Committee, which I did sit on. I chaired our Planning and Zoning Commission immediately prior to being elected. And then, staff makes recommendations, but it's always in conjunction with the developers. And I think most developers and builders will be thrilled if they went away. But on the other side, they do recognize that this is a very fast-growing town, and I do believe that there's room for compromise and not just wholesale elimination. Does that help?
Yeah, it's just, so up until 2016, it just went to the ratepayers, the people that are paying for the water and the sewage, right?
Correct.
So, and if you need to upgrade because there's more people, it just goes to them, which that would decrease the cost of a home because, look, I looked to buy a piece of property and build it for my business, and I think I got quoted several $1,000s as an impact fee that was not going anywhere, doing anything, if that makes sense, because it was in a prime, location with the city and whatnot. So where all that stuff existed. So I'm just trying to put two and two together and understand. So I appreciate that.
So our roadway fee is based on zones. So if you're in an older established part of town where the roads are already established, you're not going to be paying as much in a roadway impact fee as you would, say, if you're in South College Station where there's a tremendous amount of growth. So at least on the roadway, there is some parsing based on the activity happening in that part of the city.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Members, any other questions? Thank you for your
Thank y'all.
testimony. I think I've got three more: Bob Yancy, Valen Cepak, and J.D. Hale. The chair calls Bob Yancy, and you'll be testifying for yourself and the city of College Station. You're for the bill.
I am in support, and I testify as one member of council today, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, go ahead.
Honorable Chairman and Representatives, Bob Yancy testifying in support. I believe the unintended consequences of impact fees are threatening to California, the Texas housing market. Often well in excess of $10,000 per new home in College Station, new lot. These fees are meant to make growth pay for itself and shift the tax burden from residents to new neighborhoods, but the opposite is occurring just like in California. These fees are causing builder flight as builders leave our high-impact fee city for a non-impact fee city area like the city of Bryan or out in the county, which is leading to a rise in special districts in our area. Pushing growth outward ironically increases demands on our infrastructure with more traffic as folks travel longer distances to get to work, school, church, or back home where they pay no city property tax after pounding our pavement, so to speak. That ironically means impact fees drive taxes up for our residents just like California, and I believe the evidence is showing that's the case in College Station. Because fewer homes are being built, we have a tight housing market. It's increasing valuations and demand skyrockets for homes, and over-occupancy pressure ensues, which this very committee heard about a month ago. Apartments are hit especially hard. We have at least 2 approved apartment complexes stuck because they don't pencil, because between them there's about $2.2 million in impact fees. The plans are 3 years old. We cannot force builders to build in College Station, but we can darn sure incentivize them not to. And that's what we're doing. The result is more traffic, lower affordability, higher taxes, and vast sprawl, just like California. End of note. We've never lowered our property taxes to offset impact fees, despite us having raised impact fees 7 times. So where is the taxpayer savings? 5489 seeks nothing more than a short-term test. Let's prove up if impact fees are helping or hurting Texas, and give you all a chance to look back in the 90th session and determine if that is the case. I applaud Representative Dyson for his bill, and I thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Members, any questions? Okay, I have a couple. You said the impact fee is $10,000 per house?
Yes, sir. Water, wastewater's gone up 428% since enactment, and roadways has gone up 272%. And that $10,000 doesn't include a $5,500 parks dedication fee, so, and the developer fee. So it's really
You're losing me.
$25,000.
You said $10,000 is the impact fee, and there's another $5,000 for parks
That's correct.
for each house?
Yes, sir. We've got an apartment complex.
And so
Said
on apartments, yeah.
1.179 million.
Is it per unit?
It's a per unit calculation that's lower than a house, but when you multiply it by all the units in multifamily.
So how much is it per unit?
I want to say it's like $1,800, $2,000 per unit, somewhere in that range, but please don't quote me on that. I don't have that data in front of me, but I've got plenty.
But for a house, it's $10,000 impact fee plus another $5,000 per house?
Yes,
for
sir.
Parks?
Yes, sir. And we've never, if it's truly meant to be a transference of infrastructure burden from existing residents to new development, then why haven't existing residents benefited in the tax rate as we've engaged in this dramatic impact fee regime? 7 increases in 9 years.
7 in 9 years.
428% on wastewater, 272% on roadways.
Well, so I know the legislature has tried to cap property taxes by having caps and other
Yes, sir.
things. So is this a way to get around the caps that the legislatures try to put on property taxes by?
Perhaps so. All I know is there's not a requisite reduction in what our current taxpayers are paying relative to the two are happening independently of one another. They're simply 2 revenue streams, property tax and impact fees.
So 7 increases in 9 years.
That's all told across all of the water, wastewater, roadways. Yes, sir.
And so, and there's no limit to what it can increase, I assume.
There is. I think it's a complex calculation.
But that's internally, within the city.
I believe every city is required to hire an independent consultant to help them come up with the numbers. And that's coming under question too, as it being highly inaccurate. And I believe 1883, Senator Betancourt's bill is trying to address that. But what I think is fantastic about Representative Dyson's bill is let's leave all that alone. Let's answer the larger question first. Are impact fees helping or hurting the Texas housing market? You guys could look back in the 90th session were this bill to pass and answer that question once and for all and have a better focus on how to deal with impact fees going forward. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe impact fees are helping. I'm certain that the data showed that they are not.
Okay. Members, any other questions? Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you, Chairman.
The chair calls Valen Cepak. We show you registered as Valen Cepak, and on behalf of yourself, you'll be testifying for the bill. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Good morning.
Okay, good.
My name is Valen Cepak. I'm a master's student at the Bush School of Government, but also a resident in the city of College Station. I've been there since 2017. A home is more than a roof over one's head. Having a reasonably affordable, well-located home is an essential element of enjoying a flourishing, opportunity-rich life. That comes from the Bush Institute at SMU when they did their Growth Economic Institute building. This quote from the Bush Institute sets the tone for why I've come to testify to support this bill. However, President George Bush famously said, "Public service is a noble calling, and we need men and women of character to believe in their communities, in their states, and in their country." While all of you have answered this calling, I seek to get my masters to be able to hunt for that same calling, to become a public servant and serve the people around me. I've done ways in becoming better in my community by serving on the Housing Action Committee that the mayor had brought up, as well as nonprofit boards in the community. However, to have a strong foundation and eventually become a public servant, we have to have the ability to live in the areas that we want to represent. And right now in the city of College Station, I don't see a path for myself to be able to get into a home. Interning in most of your offices right now, I would assume, are people who also want to answer this calling that President H.W. Bush set for public servants. In the city of College Station, we have had builders speak directly to the council, telling them that this fee is passed directly on to the buyer. And they have mentioned that if this fee was to go away, the prices of their homes would come down on new builds. If the prices on these new builds come down, the increase in houses in the area, because builders can now be more competitive, would naturally drive the housing costs across the board down. I mention that because we have a city who wants people to get into homes. We have a city that wants young people to have careers here and be successful in the area. They also have a successful and quite amazing initiative that helps down payment assistance when it comes to people who want to get new homes. This would allow people who have potentially been moved out of certain areas due to the apartment complexes and student housing to start building generational wealth and get into a house. If the ability for housing prices comes down, the threshold to meet the criteria to have that ability to get down payment assistance is greater, and more people have the opportunity to first get into their first home and build that opportunity-rich life that the Institute at SMU found. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Members, any questions? Thank you for your testimony.
Yep.
Sure. We show you, call us J.D. Hale. Show you registered as J.D. Hale on behalf of the Texas Association of Builders. You'll be testifying on the bill. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Thank
Okay.
you. Good morning, Chairman, members. J.D. Hale here on behalf of the nearly 10,000 builders, remodelers, and developers, associate members of the Texas Association of Builders. Thank you, Representative Dyson, for bringing this issue. And just want to I know there's a lot of citizens from College Station in the room today, and I want you to know how hard your state representative here working on meat and potato issues to help his constituents, and he spent a lot of time on it. We began talking about impact fees early on in the interim. I also want to brag on the committee. You guys have spent, this committee this session arguably has done more to address housing affordability than we've seen in several sessions past, at least that I can recall in my time in the legislature. Chairman Gates, I want to touch on a few things that you had talked about. The impact fees are basically charged, with regard to water and wastewater, are charged by the meter, and so the size of the meter. And so whenever you're asking a question about apartment building, it's a much larger meter for that apartment, and so the cost is calculated based on that size for the water and wastewater. So most homes use about a 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch meter, and there is a fixed rate that they have determined based on the capital improvement plan and all of these different committees, and so that's how that number gets established. The size of the house, you can have a 3,000 square foot house and a 1,200 square foot house, and they both have the same size meter, and so they're paying the same fee. And that is speaking to some of the comments you've heard here today about housing affordability, where these smaller lots and smaller homes are paying the same fee that some of the larger homes are paying based on the size of the meter. The other thing that I will mention is that the impact fees are rising every year. The cities currently have the ability to, every single year, raise their impact fee without any oversight. I mean, there is a committee, and it does have to be presented, but the documents that the impact fees, capital improvement plans are very thick, thousands of pages, and how can a citizen be expected to comb through those pages in a very short period of time? And I'll close my remarks there, and thank you so much, committee, for hearing this bill today, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Members, any questions? I have a couple. So what if the apartment complex, a lot of them now have individual water meters?
Yes,
would that affect the impact fee if there was an individual meter?
It's basically, the way I understand it, it would be the meter that is out at the end of the front of the property, the size of the pipe, and then you can do individual meters on the homes, but that number that's calculated. So I can't remember off the top of my head, but I've seen the chart for College Station, and they adopt their impact fees for a total of 5 years. So, for example, 2022, it has a rate, then they increase it to 2023 and so on for 5 years. The 2020 whatever number they've published most recently, the furthest out, it's over $1 million for that largest meter possible that they sell. And when I contacted our members to say, tell me what $1 million meter looks like, describe me what this property that would use $1 million meter, and that was an apartment complex or a very large housing project, is the way that it was described to me by our members.
Okay, so let's say you have, you implement, a house is $300,000 to build. So now the house next door, that's the existing one, is worth $300,000. Let's say they're comparable. Now, if you do the impact fee, you now need $315,000 for this house, right? Let's say the impact fee is total of $15,000, the $10,000 plus the $5,000 for the parks. You follow me?
Yes, sir.
Now, so it's going to cost the consumer a total of $315,000, right?
Going to be a lot more than the 15,000, because that number, the 15,000 that you're discussing, that is assessed. The builder developer pays that up front before the construction even takes place. And so if you think about how many different people touch the house between the time that fee is paid until the homeowner moves in, and everybody has a cost to do business. And so that 15,000 gets exponentially much higher by the time someone moves in and assumes ownership of that property.
Okay, but just for argument, let's say it's $15,000.
Yes, sir. Okay.
So now the house is going to, the home buyer has to pay $315,000. Now he's, whatever his tax rate is, he's now having to pay it on $315,000. So not only is he being sort of having to pay the $15,000 extra for the impact fee, but now he's going to be paying property taxes on that, basically a tax.
That's exactly right.
Now the guy next door, because he sees this sells for $315,000, he's going to ask $315,000, isn't he? Because that's what the market price is. So
Yes,
this everyone that has never had to pay it is now going to get a windfall because they're going to be able to sell their house for a greater price, right?
Those costs, yes, sir, are reflected in the cost of the home
Yeah.
and impact fees. And I think that is a very likely scenario that you're talking about.
Okay, members, any other questions? Thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify on, for, or against House Bill 5489? If not, the chair recognizes Representative Dyson to close on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. I just want to highlight one thing here. We're not making permanent policy today. That's not the point of this bill. What we often see, and we've voted a lot of them on the floor already, like people like to say, let's do a study. Let's take a look at it. We'll come back next session. We'll see where we are. I've thought about this, and when I was going through, when we were talking about impact fees, what can we do as it relates to housing affordability? That's where I settled on this idea of a moratorium. I call it an active study. We've already heard a lot of people say, is it passed on to the home buyer? I think most people agree that it is. Will it change the price of housing, or will the builders pocket the money? That's another question you're going to hear. It's a question I've heard from a lot of people. We don't know the definite answer of that. But what we can do is put a pause on these impact fees, look at it in the 90th session, look at it in the 91st session, and see, did those housing prices drop in those markets? Were those government fees actually causing people to pay more? And I think what we'll find is the answer is yes. That's why I propose this moratorium. Again, not a permanent policy change. That's something for us to take up to see how this works, to see whether we are addressing some of the housing affordability issues. A lot of people they touched on the extra price. I mean, Mr. Chairman, you hit the nail on the head when we talk about what this cost is. Let's take a $10,000 impact fee, $15,000, whatever amount you want. You're not just paying extra property taxes on it right away because it's baked into now the value of the home, right? It's going to be hard to argue to appraisal district that your home is valued less than what you paid for it. So it's already baked in there, but it's also a mortgage. Most people with a 30-year mortgage, you take that extra $10,000. I did some quick math. I was looking at a $300,000 house that has a $10,000 fee baked in. I looked at that. It's an extra $100 that someone's paying at the current mortgage rates on their monthly payment. That is to pay what I would consider a regressive tax. And they're financing it now because that's really the only way they can afford it. They can't afford to pay the extra $10,000 right off the top and then also make their down payment. And so they're having to cover that cost. And that is why I'm proposing this bill. That's why I would like to see us take a pause to see whether this is the right policy for the state of Texas when it comes to the housing affordability to allow these high government fees. You know, we're addressing impact fees in other ways. I don't want to bring those bills into this. Keep it clean on 5489. But this is another way. And again, I would like for y'all to think of this as an active study. Can we make a difference by peeling back a government fee that, I remind you, we're not taking something away from the cities that they just had a right to do. It was something that we gave them the right to do back in 1989. And maybe that policy now, with its explosive growth, with as much as the housing market is increasing around here, this gives us an opportunity to peel it back, take a pause on it, and take a look to see, is this the right policy for the state of Texas moving forward?
Members, any questions? Well, you know, I didn't realize that it was so high. My area doesn't have impact fees. I didn't realize it. But really, that impact fee is just, it's a tax. It's just done in a different way that really circumvents all the work the legislature has done to try to limit rising in local property taxes.
Right.
So if we limited it, you know, what they should do is equally be raising and going to the voters for a tax increase if they feel they need the city services. It does seem like a way to kind of circumvent.
Well, and I think that it can be. You know, I understand the theory and why they had impact fees starting out with growth. Again, I bring it all back. The purpose of this bill is on that housing affordability thing. And can we stop something that we allowed just to see if we can make housing a little bit more affordable here in the state of Texas?
Okay. Thank you, Representative Dyson. If there's no objection, the bill is left pending. Is there objection? The chair hears none, and the bill is left pending.
All right, thank y'all.